Hi, this is Chris Troy from Praying Mantis, and you're listening to the Classic Rock and Metal podcast. God bless ya.
Hey, this is Michael Sweet from Stryper, and you are listening to the Classic Rock and Metal podcast.
This is the Classic Rock and Metal podcast, featuring all your favorite bands from the 70s and 80s. The old stuff, the new stuff, the news, interviews, everything you need for your hard rock and metal fix. Right here, right now. Officially the best music podcast in the UK. As voted for by you, the listeners. And an independent panel of judges in the UK Podcaster Awards 2015. This is the one and only Classic Rock and Metal Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of your very own Classic Rock and Metal podcast. This time out, we talk to two British bands who started in the 70s and I guess are therefore considered dyed-in-the-wool classic heavy metal, Girlschool and Praying Mantis, plus US Christian rockers Stryper, who've divided opinion since they started in 1983, but like the other two, are still out there making records and putting on a show. First up is Chris Troy from Mantis, who took time to mention some of the members who over the years perhaps weren't the best fit for the band.
Yeah, there was one keyboard player. I remember he got drunk one night and he was just saying, why the hell am I playing keyboards? I should have been a brain surgeon. So that was potentially what he really wanted to do. Not play keyboards, but be a brain surgeon. So you can see the type of characters we had in the band.
Michael Sweet from Stryper says you don't have to buy into the lyrics and message of any song to be able to like it.
And a lot of times they don't listen to the lyrics or they don't care what the lyrics are about. I mean, there's a lot of bands I love and I don't believe in what they're singing about, you know. But I love the sound. I love the song.
And finally, the girl next door we all wanted growing up, Kim McCauliffe of Girlschool, who says they were always accepted by the largely male-dominated heavy metal scene. She thinks,
as I said before, that all the bands used to be really nice to us to our faces. God knows what they said behind our back.
But there is, of course, only one way we could possibly start this show, as 2016 is shaping up to be the annus horribilis with regard to the permanent exit from the building of artists who for many of us have been the soundtrack of our entire lives thus far. None more so, for me, perhaps, than someone who requires no introduction. So I'll make no apologies at all for playing this particular track, but as you all have heard it 1,000 times before, and possibly another 1,000 since the end of 2015, this beautifully loose version is a bonus track from the deluxe reissue of Motorhead's No Sleep Till Hammersmith record. So, as I pour myself a generous Jack and Coke, take it away, Lemmy. Praying Mantis, who started out in the mid-70s, were key components of the new wave of British heavy metal and enjoyed great success throughout the glorious 80s. They marched stoically through the troublesome 90s and noughties, and since the millennium have released 4 full-length studio albums, including the most recent Legacy record, which came out towards the end of 2015 through European label Frontiers. The band has had close associations with another British institution, Iron Maiden, with several musicians performing for both outfits, although Mantis never enjoyed the same commercial success as the Irons. The potential reasons for this, along with numerous lineup changes over the years, and of course details of the new album, were some of the many topics I chatted about with bassist and founder member Chris Troy. How does it differ from what's gone before, and what familiar elements of Praying Mantis are going to be there for the existing fans?
Yeah, in terms of betterment, obviously every new album you do, you have to try to sort of better whatever you've done previously. It's always a tall order. Ask any band, it's something that you always strive to do. So you'll be searching sometimes for different elements within the band, and consequently sometimes people will say, why do we have member changes? And that's probably one of the reasons. I think sometimes if you don't think the formula is quite right in certain areas, I think then you try to adjust it until you get everything just right, and then hopefully the whole thing comes together and capitulates into a great album. Hopefully Legacy will do that, and from the early signs and reviews we've got and the general feedback, it just seems to be great. So hopefully it is one better than, say, Sanctuary and and Time Tells No Lies, which I think a lot of people now are sort of highlighting those albums as the best ones. So hopefully we'll surpass those.
You've often been tagged from the early days as a sort of a straight ahead rock band. Do you think some people might be a bit surprised at how melodic Sanctuary and Legacy is? I mean, obviously we've got keyboards as well, so it's a bit different.
I think if anybody knows the band in the past, they'll always link us with the melody. But that's the thing. Sometimes when people hear the name but not actually know the music, and possibly because they thought, well, it's part of the new wave of British heavy metal, and maybe the early parts of it didn't have that much sort of melody associated with it. So they said, yeah, probably it's just a hard rock band without any melody, and maybe they did associate us with that. And when we were supporting Iron Maiden, I think during the the 79, 1980 time, I think people were surprised how melodic we were. Whether we actually fitted in with playing along Iron Maiden is another thing, but generally I think people really like that, the sort of chalk and cheese element, effectively. It did us good at the time. I think it was superb supporting Iron Maiden, and so as you say, I think maybe people were surprised when they did come to see us then, and even now, how melodic the band is.
So we've got yourself and Tino, your brother, still in the band. Who else have we got, and who's been responsible for the songwriting?
Yeah, obviously Tino and myself. Obviously, we go back to that was the inception of the band. Tino started it, I think, with a guy called Peter Moore. So many years ago, I can't even think. That's probably 74, 75. And I joined slightly later when they asked me to play bass, because before that I was actually doing flamenco guitar, so it was quite a divergence for me to actually start playing bass. So Tino and myself throughout the years. Andy Burgess on guitar. He's been there now 11 years, so certainly a core member who's contributed really excellently in the writing from this time round, and on Sanctuary, but I think even more so on this album. And then we've got the two new guys, Hans Intizant and J.C. Kuipers on vocals. Both
good solid English names there.
Yeah, very. I've missed out the rest of their middle names. I could spend the rest of the night just going through their middle names. They're quite complex, to say the least, but superb guys and superb musicians. And I remember, when we did see them playing with another band at the time. We just thought they were incredible musicians, and hoped it would work with Mantis, and it certainly has. I think everyone's sort of contributed to the songwriting process this time round, and hence why I believe that there's probably more divergence in the songs, because sometimes you can listen to an album and you think it's a little bit samey, obviously it's the same songwriter all the way through. And that's always hard to break out that mold, because there's bound to be that element of, I don't know, tedium. You go into another song, it sounds a little bit like the other one. So here, I think we've got the divergence in material, because so many people are involved in the songwriting.
There's a track called Tokyo on the Legacy album. How important has the fan base in Japan been for you guys over the years?
There's no doubt in around 1990 it sort of kick-started the band again. That tour we did with it was Paul Di'Anno and Dennis Stratton, both from ex-members of Iron Maiden. And there was this idea by a guy called Massarito. We used to call him Massive Ego. Hopefully he won't hear this, but it was a good. No, he's a lovely guy. Kingpin over there in terms of music, and it was just a brainchild of his to get us over there and do this hybrid thing. It was like Praying Mantis and Iron Maiden, or I should say Iron Maiden and Praying Mantis, and we. It was this hybrid of songs that we put together, and it was sellout shows in Tokyo, about 4 or 5 shows, and it went down an absolute storm. So it really sort of kick-started it all again. And from that point, we've done so many, I think about another 8, 9 albums now. Most of that on the back of the support we got from Japan, so it sort of gave us the second wind, so to speak, and has kept us going.
You're still playing a fair amount of live shows all over the world, from what I can see. Who's coming out to see Praying Mantis these days? Is it still the old guard, or is there a new audience there as well?
Certainly, there's the old guard there. You can see them now with the wheelchairs and the Zimmer frames, which we're glad to see those people. And to a degree, there is quite a lot of new fans coming to the shows. Mainly, I think in Germany and in Belgium, we've noticed that quite a lot there. So it may be that we're communicating possibly more with those audiences than elsewhere.
One thing that is very familiar, of course, with the new album Legacy is that Rodney Matthews is again providing the cover artwork. Now that's really is a revisit, certainly as to the first album, Time Tells No Lies, isn't it?
It is indeed. Rodney, we've always loved his artwork. He did the logo as well. The Praying Mantis logo, which we love it. So it's been there from since the Time Tells No Lies era, and I think he also did Predator in Disguise, which was a superb artwork. And this one, we all love that one. He seems to have pulled out all the stops again, and I think in his own words, he said he thinks it's actually one of his best pieces as well. So, we're happy with it. Really, really happy with it.
Last time you and I spoke, you were still trying to get hold of your own first album on vinyl, I think through eBay or wherever, as was I. I managed to get mine, but since then, Rock Candy Records has reissued it on CD. So have you given up and ended up with a CD copy instead? Exactly,
yes. I still haven't got my vinyl copy. I keep meaning to go onto eBay and find one, but I should do it before they get expensive, because I've heard some of them are getting quite pricey now, because they're getting less and less now, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. There must be some pretty memorable shows or tours, whether it was just as the band was starting or coming through to that when the new wave of British heavy metal hit, or even after that. Which of the big shows or the tours really stick in your mind? Not the one where you fell off the stage backwards and nobody...
You know about that one, yeah.
but memorable for a good reason.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt the early Reading festivals, I think it was 1980, 80 or 81, where the Reading Festival then was very much the rock one. I think now it's quite, diversive, and it's I don't know. Obviously, to me, it's lost its magic. But then again, maybe I would say that because I'm a lot older and I remember it as it was. But it did seem to have a great magic in that time, and I remember going out there, and the band was, it was just beginning to make a mark, and we were doing some of the shows with Iron Maiden. And I think Def Leppard were on the bill as well. But it was just incredible going out in front of, 35,000 people.
Obviously, some significant connections between Mantis and Iron Maiden, well documented. Obviously, Dennis was there early, and Clive Burr was there. Clive, sadly, no longer with us. But I've often wondered, do you aside from maybe those shows that you did in Japan, do you have any contact with those or former members, or once they're gone, that's it? Or, I mean, it depends if you bump into them on the circuit, but do you still chat to any of those guys?
Definitely, Dennis was in the band a long time. I think it was about 14 or 15 years. So he is like a brother. We do see him. He's doing his stuff now with the Maiden years. The band's band associated with the Iron Maiden, all the covers, etc. And he seems to be enjoying that and doing well out of it. There's certainly no bad feelings or anything like that. We still get on very well. Paul Di'Anno, less so. I've not personally seen him for 20 years, I think. It's a long time. But again, he's doing well in his own little ventures all over the world. So he seems to be, he seems to have cracked the nut somewhere. And but I'd like to catch up with him. Yeah, definitely.
You should do what Motorhead did. They did that couple of days when everybody who'd ever been in the band all came up and played. That'd be quite something.
There'll be a lot of members on the stage, that's a certain. I think, if you see the family tree, it's quite extravagant. There's certainly, I think someone showed it to me earlier on Wikipedia, and Wikipedia have taken the trouble of actually compiling, it's like a bar chart of all the people that have actually been in Mantis, and it is quite amazing how it's like a timeline with all the various members, and it does make intriguing reading. Even me had sort of a good reminder as to who's been in the band and who left or who disappeared, whatever. With Clive, it was that was such a horrible situation, but lovely character. God bless him.
Be honest, do you ever look at that family tree of Praying Mantis and look at a name and go, Tino, do you remember that guy? Who was that?
Yeah, and there was one keyboard player. I remember he got drunk one night and he was just saying, I should have, he said, why the hell am I playing keyboards? I should have been a brain surgeon. So that was potentially what he really wanted to do, not play keyboards, but be a sort of a brain surgeon. So you can see the sort of type of characters we have had in the band. But it's been good times. But we've had the privilege of working with some incredible musicians. There's no doubt about it. Some vocalists, some very, very talented vocalists, and in their own right, and really diversified. From we've had obviously Gary Barden, John Sloman, Tony O'Hora, Damien. We had for a while Damien Wilson. It's almost like a project sometimes when you think about it, but it was never actually set off to be like that. It's just the way things have panned out.
Yeah, well, you stick around for 40 odd years, you're going to have a few ins and outs. Any real regrets or anything where you look at it and go, I wish we'd said yes and we should have said no, or vice versa?
There's when we think back on it, that we were under the the leadership at one point of Rod Smallwood, who was obviously with Iron Maiden. And then he said, I'm too busy with Iron Maiden, I just can't give you the attention that you need. So he then effectively palmed us off with another management company. And, we can all look back and say, if it wasn't for that, where would we be now? But in a way, I do see that being the time when it did seem to go wrong, because unfortunately, these other people, they just didn't quite know the business. There was a company called Leo Krebs that came over, and they did state a few things to that management company at the time. And Leo Krebs were massive in the States, and they were prepared to put a lot of money behind the band if we had agreed to a couple of changes in it, like, for instance, the addition of keyboards and bringing in a frontman, to really sort of deliver the songs. And if the story is true, I'm not 100%, but as far as I believe what the case was, they told our management company said, no, stuff you. They've got to where they are by doing these songs as that unit. Why should we change it? So they went up to Sheffield and they signed a small band called Def Leppard instead. So, that is the story as we later heard it. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But from what I've heard, I believe it is true. There's my regret.
Yeah, well, fair enough. Okay. I've got one more for you then, really, and it's the one we ask everybody. If you could pick a track that you've done over the years from anything, from any album or any particular live recording of a track, which sums up everything you kind of wanted to achieve with Praying Mantis, or where you listened to it back and thought, there it is, that can go on the headstone, which one would it be?
That is a difficult one. That is a difficult one. Maybe the one we said earlier. I still, it still touches the nerves of children. I think Children of the Earth. It just seems to sort of be, because it literally was, I think, probably the first song we ever really put together. I think it was Captured City and Children of the Earth that we, Tony and myself, we wrote together. And I think Peter Moore had a little say in that one as well. But it just seemed to slot into place and without any real effort. And you think, well, that was it. Now sometimes you have to really work at songs to get them right, and it just seemed to fall into place. So because of that, I would say, probably Children of the Earth.
Perfect. Well, we'll be playing that, and I think I might go for Fight for Your Honour, actually, off the new album.
Okay. And I quite like even Believable.
All right, well, I'm not going to argue. I might switch then to... I'll put Believable on. I don't want to get into trouble.
No problem.
So there we are then. Great, as always, to chat with Chris, and here are those two tracks back to back. Children of the Earth, this version from the re-recorded Metal Morphosis EP released in 2011, and Chris's pick from the latest album Legacy, Believable. And so to Stryper, who started in around 1983 and bucked the trend of heavy metal's tongue-in-cheek satanic kinship by being the first overtly Christian rock band to gain acceptance in the mainstream. They did this by portraying a strong image, delivering a powerful live show, literally a religious experience, and, shock horror, writing some great songs. However, they presented a dilemma for many fans like myself, who found it difficult to get past such a strong religious message packaged up with the music. In time, though, a huge number of people simply enjoyed the tunes and either took or left the lyrical aspect depending on which way they leaned. Interestingly, the band weren't cut any slack by the religious fanatics who made it their mission to persecute heavy metal bands and fans alike, who in their eyes were disciples of Satan. In fact, they were given more grief being labelled as wolves in sheep's clothing, which shows just how out there some of these guardians of our moral standards were. I talked about this and other things with vocalist Michael Sweet, but started by asking him for his thoughts on the band's latest album, Fallen.
We always go into it, obviously, first and foremost, trying to please ourselves. And what I mean by that is, we want to be happy with what we're doing. We want to be able to listen to the album and put it in our car or our house stereo, whatever, and say, we like that. That sounds good. And be proud of it and be happy about what we've done and accomplished. But that being said, we also try to listen to the fans. I always post on Twitter and Facebook a question before every album. I said, what do you guys want to hear on this album? And, people, sometimes we get, 1,000 comments or more. And we take those comments and we say, okay, look, 400 of them said they want to hear more harmony guitar solos. So then we go in the studio next time around with that in mind.
Right.
We try to give the fans what they want to hear. Yeah, let's face it, it's all about the fans. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if it wasn't for them. And I don't get the mentality of bands that venture so far away from that, or they actually say, we don't care what the fans think. We do this for ourselves. It's like, it just boggles my mind.
Well, it's interesting because, talking about the fan base, it's clear from the band's mainstream appeal right back to the MTV days that although the lyrics had a clear message, not everyone who liked Stryper necessarily shared your religious views. So could we argue that whether the lifestyle is, I suppose, traditional rock and metal, the sort of sex and rock and roll, and or whether it's faith-based or secular, is it actually the music that unites people, whatever the belief is?
I think so. I think first and foremost, that's what people hear. They hear that riff or they hear that sound and they're drawn to it. And a lot of times they don't listen to the lyrics or they don't care what the lyrics are about. There's a lot of bands I love and I don't believe in what they're singing about.
Right.
But I love the sound. I love the song. It's good. It's catchy. It's well performed. And I think that's the case many times with Stryper fans. I've talked to Satanists that are fans. I've talked to atheists that are fans. And the music breaks down those barriers.
Did you guys ever confuse the groups? I remember back in the day when people would protest outside Black Sabbath concerts saying that they believed that heavy metal was in itself somehow the work of the devil. Did that ever get confused? Because obviously you were a kind of rock and metal band, but with a very different message. Did you ever have any contact with those people?
Oh, yeah, all the time. Back in the 80s when we first started, practically every show, we would have protesters out in front, especially when we would go through the South here in the U.S., the Southern Gospel Belt, and oh my gosh, we came to know God through a gentleman by the name of Jimmy Swaggart.
Right.
And his people would come out to our shows when we were in Louisiana and their neck of the woods, protesting our shows, standing out there telling people over these bullhorns, don't go in. They're wolves in sheep's clothing. And I just used to think, gosh, this is crazy because they don't even know what we're about. We'd always go out and talk to them and ask them, have you seen us? And they'd say no. And here they are protesting something they don't even know anything about. So we try to educate them and offer them tickets. Sometimes they'd come in. Most of the time they wouldn't. But that's just the way. That's the way it goes. That's a par for the course. We've stayed true to our our course and stayed on our path. And, nothing like that is ever going to sway us to do what we know we're called to do.
Last question, I guess, on that specifically then. I mean, religion has always been potentially a divisive issue, more so in modern times, with extremism being so much a part of what we see and hear in the music. In the news. Is Stryper maybe more relevant now because of that in terms of delivering an uplifting message?
Well, you know what? I would like to think so. I mean, I think the world needs more of an uplifting message more often and from more bands. Music is probably one of the most powerful platforms and tools in our society today because, everyone loves music. That's the one thing that we all have in common is music, the love of music. And I don't think there's one person on this earth that will say, I dislike music. And I think there's enough angst and hatred and bitterness in the world. And all these bands that come out and they're, rah, 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 they're like spreading their hate or whatever. It's like, God, enough of that already,
Do you get that a lot of people saying, like, you know what, I'm not a Christian, I don't have this strong faith, but actually, I was really happy listening to that. Is that common?
We do all the time.
Right.
All the time. And they... You know how when you go to like a metal show sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you'll go there and people will leave having the mosh pit was going on all throughout the show. And sometimes some people are leaving bloody and sweaty and, At a Stryper show, it's the opposite. People are leaving with smiles on their face, and they're leaving feeling good about life and feeling good about themselves. And that's kind of the whole purpose of what we do. And when we hear that from someone that, hey, I was really down and out. I was suicidal. I had just lost my mom and lost my job and this and that. And I just didn't want to carry on. Or I was, addicted to drugs, or I was an alcoholic, or this and that. When I left your show, I felt renewed. I felt like I can continue and like there's hope. And, that to me is exactly why we do what we do. That's the purpose of what we do. I mean, we love music. That's our common thread with all these people. But at the same time, at the end of the day, when the song is over and completed, what do you take with you? Just remembering that you got the crap beat out of you at a Slayer show. I mean, or that, you were lifted up in a positive way at a Stryper show and you caught a Bible and the guy said a prayer with you and prayed for your situation. Let's
get more up to date then, and let's talk about the new album, Fallen, which is, listened to it a lot. The guy sent it through a while ago. It sounds really great. It's definitely a Stryper album. I think, as you guys have commented, I know a lot of bands do this, but genuinely, you can put it, in the same bracket as To Hell with the Devil or any of that earlier stuff. It's a really heavy sounding record. Were you deliberately going for that?
Absolutely. Stryper started off in the early days prior to our first album being recorded, and if you look at the history of the albums themselves, Yellow and Black, Attack Soldiers Under Command, and even To Hell with the Devil, we were a heavy band. Yeah, we had ballads, we had First Love, we had Honestly, we had a few ballads thrown in there, but for the most part, we were a heavy hard rock band. And I feel like to a degree, we kind of lost that over the years. Certainly on In God We Trust. When we reformed in 2003 and then 2005 we recorded Reborn, we tried to be something we just weren't. We ditched the guitar solos, the high screaming notes, and that metal edge we had. And I think now with No More Hell to Pay, and especially with Fallen, we've really come back to that. And that was done on purpose.
Right.
It took listening to the fans. It took reevaluating who we are. And it also took going back and researching our roots and making an album like The Covering. Mm-hmm. And re-recording all these old songs and from bands that inspired us to become musicians.
Well, I was going to ask a question about that because obviously they're covering an entire album of covers, and on the new record you cover the Sabbath song After Forever, which was great. And I know you said you perhaps considered that they could have been the first Christian rock band, which might surprise a lot of people. Could you maybe elaborate on that?
The first thing that pops into anybody's mind when they hear Black Sabbath and they say, what do you think of Black Sabbath? Most people think, oh, dark, evil, satanic, satanic. I like them, but oh yeah, they're a dark band, but they're really not. If you go read the lyrics, most of their lyrics were about politics or war or religion, about God. I mean, like After Forever, that's about as Christian a lyric as one gets. And most people don't know that. I'm not really sure why. Apparently the lyrics are going in and out and they're just listening to the music. I don't know. But, Black Sabbath, I think they dabbled in the occult years ago and it freaked them out. And they started writing a lot of Christian-themed or God-themed lyrics. So I felt like, it was a perfect song for us to cover musically and lyrically. Plus, we used to listen to Sabbath. I mean, we're big Sabbath fans.
Talking about the songwriting, do you feel that you as a band are responsible for the songwriting, or do you feel that some of that is coming from elsewhere, from your beliefs or from God perhaps?
Well, I definitely feel and believe that a lot of it is inspired by God. I always, I write most of the songs, probably 95%, maybe even 98% of the songs over the years. And the reason for that is because I write the particular style that Stryper has established. Everyone else's style is a little different. But that being said, when I write, absolutely, I draw from inspiration straight from the heavens, from God above. A lot of these songs on Fallen were taken right out of the Bible. The song Yahweh is about the crucifixion of Christ. The song Fallen is about Lucifer being kicked out of heaven. Let There Be Light, right from Genesis. So yes, absolutely. I also write from experiences that I've gone through over the years. From losing someone to falling in love with someone to the song Pride is about relationships and how pride can kind of destroy relationships, sadly enough. But if we were to just put aside our pride and humble ourselves, how much better off would we be as people?
Right. A lot of people draw on their faith at really trying times in their life. Is there a particular time or a particular event where you can, I'm sure there are lots of them, but something specific where you think if it wasn't for my faith and perhaps for the music going hand in hand, that would have been, more than a struggle?
Well, gosh, yeah. I mean, I've lived a lot of tough times over the years. I mean, my marriage almost fell apart years ago during the Against the Law period. Oz's marriage did. Tim's marriage did. And Robert's relationship, he was engaged to be married, it fell apart. So all the relationships fell apart. Mine almost did. And the reason for that is because we turned into these guys that started, drinking and going against everything that we, had stood for, and became to a degree hypocritical in what we were doing. And that's why I left the band in 1992. That was a very dark time for me.
Right.
And I got through that. I lost my wife to cancer. Of almost 23 years. I'm remarried now to a beautiful woman, Lisa. She's a godsend. But, I've gone through a lot of times where I did question God. And quite frankly, there have been times in my life where I felt like God wasn't there at all and it was just a big joke.
Right.
But I always come to the realization eventually that God doesn't do all these things to us like we want to believe. How can God let this happen? How can God let that happen? If he loves me, why would he allow this? Why would he take this person? Well, it's not a matter of God doing it. It's a matter of, number one, that's life. Mm-hmm. Number two, we bring a lot of it on ourselves. We make choices in life and they affect our lives and they direct our lives.
Right.
So I just feel like the blame game, and I did that myself, needs to be put aside. And when I reevaluated that and thought hard about that, I realized like how much God does love me and what he's done for me in my life. And it's helped me to stay on the straight and the narrow,
Interesting. Well, it's good to hear. And I think a lot of people will be somewhat encouraged from what you were saying about, there are times when you felt God wasn't there and you've gone against it. And because, I think I don't know, some people who are struggling, they can look at people who are overtly religious and think, well, you think you've got it all sorted. But if those people have gone through tough times, I don't know, somehow I think it makes it easier for them to either move towards some kind of solution, be it religious or otherwise. So I think overall that's a very strong message.
Absolutely. And, I'm here to humble myself. And, I've been there and done it. And I've had some real tough times in my life. And like I said, questioned God and turned away from God.
We're going to play something from the album, but our rule is it's your record, so you get the choice. Do you have a specific that you'd like us to play? What's your crowning moment from the album that you'd like people to hear more than anything?
Well, that's the real tough part about this album is there's no filler. I'd probably pick the opening track, Yahweh, because it's a co-write with Clint Lowry. It's such a powerful song, so different for Stryper, and it's our most epic, longest song we've ever recorded.
Good, because that would have been my pick as well.
Awesome.
Now, as you may have gathered, that was a very interesting interview for me. I have to say, at the time of listening to the album, ready for reviewing it and doing the interview through that process and speaking with Michael Sweet, who's a fantastic, really nice guy, I was going through a very difficult time personally, and I have to say, I'm not a religious person at all, but I found the whole thing very uplifting. He was great to talk to. It's a really good album to listen to, and it kind of somehow helped. Don't worry, I'm not going to be coming around to anybody's house banging on the door with the Bible, but there's a place for it for everybody, and it was quite a different one for me. So thank you to Michael. It was great, and go and have a listen to the album. Go and buy the album. It's extremely good. Last, but by no possible means least, this month we have Girlschool, who, like Praying Mantis, have been around since the late 70s. They enjoyed a long-time musical partnership and friendship with Motorhead, which spawned a number 5 EP and hit single Please Don't Touch, but by themselves were still more than a force to be reckoned with. Their classic hit-and-run album in 1981 reached number 5 in the UK album chart and sold gold in more than a couple of countries around the world. The band have continued off and on over the years, coping with the loss of guitarist Kelly Johnson and going through various personnel changes, but now have 3 of the 4 original members, plus Jackie Chambers, who's been with them since 1999. The band toured the US recently, and their latest album, Guity As Sin, is as much a Girlschool album as you could want it to be. I chatted with vocalist and guitarist Kim McCauliffe about this and other things, but started by asking whether they really were just one of the boys, even though they were, well, girls.
I sort of get asked this question quite a lot about what was it like to be an all-girl band? Did you feel you were treated any differently? And all I can say is that we didn't really feel that we were. We were always accepted as part of, or sort of one of the boys, really, I think. And I suppose it's because we didn't really go on like looking too girly, perhaps, or whatever. And I suppose it was the music we were playing. Well, we always felt like we were one of the boys, and as I said before, that all the bands used to be really nice to us to our faces. God knows what they said behind our backs, but as far as we could tell, we were sort of treated as the same, and same with the fans as well. I think probably a lot to do with it as well is perhaps because of the Motorhead connection, right. Obviously because Lemmy embraced us, so I suppose that it made it all right, if you know what I mean.
Well, also, on the press side of things, it probably did work to your advantage because there was a novelty element to it which forced them to look at you, and then obviously the music stacked up as well. So you had a lot of sort of front covers and a lot of articles, weren't there, at the time?
Yeah, well, I mean, what happened was basically we didn't set out to be an old girl band. I mean, what happened was that Edith and I, we grew up in the same street, and she had a brother who played guitar, and I had a cousin who lived next door to me that played guitar. And so we sort of got influenced by them. And of course, we both loved music, and my cousin got me into heavy rock. So I grew up with all the glam rock stuff, but then he used to bring back all the new Zeppelin and new Purple albums and Sabbath, and sort of got me into it all, So, basically, we decided then, Ian and I, that we wanted to be in a band. But of course, all the boys that we knew, they went, get lost, basically. They didn't want girls in their band, And of course, we were only just starting out then, so they just didn't want to know. It was as simple as that. So the only way we could actually be in a band was to find other girls that wanted to learn how to play and be in a band. Right. And we found that was the easiest way to learn as well. If you're all playing together, it gave you more incentive. Do you know what I mean? And so basically, we had no choice but to be a female band. We didn't really even think about it as something different. We just thought, well, there was nothing else we could do. We wanted to be in a band. No boys wanted us, so we had to find other girls. And there was a girl at Edith's school that played drums in the girls' brigade, I think, or something, Tina. So we started off a little 3-piece playing away, and then it just progressed from there. Then, of course, we did start to get this attention. So we thought, we're not stupid. We thought, oh, hang on a minute, this could be quite good. There'd be no point in getting a bloke in the band now. What is the point? So it just, obviously, it did help us. And we weren't that stupid. So, and of course, by that time, we were touring literally in my mum and dad's old Bedford van. Well, that we stole off them, basically. I mean, we were literally sleeping on top of our gear, with sleeping bags on top of the bloody gear. And our poor Tim, our roadie, he used to have to sleep in the front seat, he wasn't our roadie, I was our boyfriend at the time, but poor Tim, he got roped into it. So, of course, he was sleeping across the front seat, and we'd all be top-tailing on top of the bloody gear at the back. Imagine if we'd had more smelly men with us. It wouldn't have worked so well. literally, that's how it all began, and has been ever since.
I mean, the band progressed pretty quickly. My impression was in the early 80s, and you guys, I say you toured a lot is an understatement. You never seemed to be off the road. Did you get a chance to enjoy that success, with the singles in the charts and the album, or was it just too grueling? Was it just full on all the time?
A friend of ours started up his own record label, City Records, and he just put a single out with the UK Subs, who were great mates of ours. He said to us one day, "Well, do you fancy doing a single?" Of course, we jumped at the chance, I mean, bloody hell, having an actual record out, amazing. So there we were one afternoon in this dingy, it wasn't exactly how we imagined it to be. It was glamorous, this record. It was literally in some dingy basement in Soho one afternoon, and we knocked out Take It All Away.
Right.
And funny enough, we came up blinking into the sunlight, out of the depths of this, dungeon of a studio, and there was John Peel at the top of the bloody steps. And we got introduced to him, and he actually played the single. And then, of course, Motorhead at the time were looking for a support band for their first major British tour, the Overkill tour.
Right.
And they heard about this single, Take It All Away, and about this girl band. And, of course, Lemmy being Lemmy, you thought, oh, that'd be a good idea. And something different. And then, of course, we met up, and he invited us, and he invited us onto the Overkill tour. And then, of course, that was in like 1979 or whatever it was. So, yeah, and that is when it all really did take off then, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, then afterwards, of course, yeah, it was pretty non-stop. I remember literally coming home one day and literally bursting into tears, just walking into my flat, and my mum and dad had put up a welcome home banner with balloons and everything, and I just sat there and I just all by myself, just dumped the suitcase down. I was so relieved, to actually be home for at least a week or so, yeah. So
I mean, when it really started to take hold and the singles were going, obviously the first album came out. I mean, everybody talks about making it, and that's where you've paid your dues and you've done, like you say, all the crappy dives and stuff. Was there a point where you just thought, this is great, this is what we've always wanted, and you kind of thought, yeah, it's hard work, but we've made it? I mean, what was the best point of that particular period?
When we had our first single out, and it sort of charted in the lower charts, and then we had the next one out, that one a bit higher. And then we had Demolition out, and that went in at number 28 in the charts. Can you imagine? And then, of course, Hit and Run, straight in at number 5. And then, of course, Please Don't Touch with Motorhead. I mean, that was just, and Top of the Pops, of course, I think that was every band's, that was the pinnacle, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of every band's career, to be on Top of the Pops. And when we knew we were going to be on Top of the Pops, I mean, it was just incredible. Even for Motorhead, I mean, because they'd never done it, before, and Lemmy still says it's been their highest ever selling single as well, so. I mean, we did 250,000, and that was only to get to number 5.
Wow.
I mean, imagine these days, I think you only have to sell about 10,000, you're number 1,
Now, rock and metal bands always have great stories about the road and never seem to escape the glare of the sort of the comedy aspect. There is that always element. We always had it when we were following bands, and, you got to have a laugh and you don't take yourself too seriously. And in film, it's an often used comedy scene about bands when someone gets electrocuted for some reason or other. But that actually happened to you, didn't it?
Yes, and it wasn't very funny, I can tell you. I suppose it was in probably about probably about 1981. I should remember it, shouldn't I? Really, but I'm trying to forget it actually. But no, it was about in 1981. We were in Denmark, in Copenhagen, and I still remember it. It was absolutely packed, the thing, and they'd been having trouble with the electrics that day. And of course, we go on, we do the first song. All of a sudden, this horrendous noise comes through this PA, whatever. And of course, I had my hand on the mic, and poof, that was it. Just thrown back, and of course, the guitar was stuck to me, and the mic. So I'm on the floor with all this electricity just literally waving through me, And the weirdest thing is, I can actually remember everything, even though I was flat on my back, obviously just looking straight up the ceiling. I remember seeing everything going on. I remember seeing Enid screaming at the Monitor Man. I remember, like, Kelly just off wandering around, not realising, on her own world, going off there. And then I remember the lighting guy literally coming from the back. It looked like he was coming over the heads of everybody to the stage. And then I remember seeing Steve, our roadie, at the time kicking the mic off me. I remember seeing everything. And then people going, there's no way you could have seen it because you were literally stuck on, So that was weird. Perhaps I, have this weird out-of-body experience or something. But, I mean, it was awful. But the worst part of it was, so of course, next thing I know, I'm in the bloody ambulance. I'm off in hospital. And they wired me up. And doctors and nurses kept coming in all night and to talk to me, to try out their English. Of course, the others all left me there. So I said to them, right, the last thing I said was, because I was fine. I felt absolutely fine, whatever. And they were looking me over, no burns. They couldn't believe it, nothing. They were whatever. And they said the best thing about this is that you'll never suffer from any arthritis or rheumatism for the rest of your life. They said, because you've had so much electricity going through you. Anyway, so that was on the upside. Then I said to the rest of them, I said, right, don't leave me in here too long tomorrow. I said, come here early. I'm not going to be stuck in here, whatever. Anyway, I'm still in there, and bloody midday. The swines, they'd all been partying all night, and they were too hungover in the morning and still bloody in bed. So I'm laying there waiting for them to come and, get me. And I had a right go at them when they finally turned up.
Obviously, when you started out, you were all really young, and you're singing and writing about that. I mean, have your life experiences over the years guided what you write about now, and sort of any examples from the new album?
Well, I was thinking we've always written sort of not political songs, but I mean we've always written songs about things that we feel strongly about. I mean, most of them have been about getting drunk and falling over.
Sure.
Basically. But I mean, we've always found space to, like even in the old days. I mean, one of the first songs we ever wrote was called Baby Doll, and that was all about putting young girls in pageants and things like that. The years, and Not For Sale was all about using women to sell cars, and even on our last studio album, Legacy, there's a song called I Spy, which we wrote about being spied on, basically, CCTV and all the rest of it. So we've always liked to write about things that we feel strongly about, and so, of course, on the new album, we've got Revolution, which Enid wrote, and Treasure, which she wrote again. I mean, this time she left me to do all the writing about getting drunk and falling over type ones, right. So and she did the more serious ones.
Well, let's move on then to Guity As Sin, which I've had for a couple of days. It's great. Sounds like a Girlschool album to me. It's
brilliant.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. But are you finding? I mean, you've been playing a bit, and we'll talk a bit more about the States tour. I mean, are you finding? Is there a new audience? Are you seeing those younger faces, or is it just the old guys like me stood at the back with a pint?
Oh no, definitely younger faces. Yeah, good. Definitely. Oh, you don't sound that old, because the funny thing is that most people I'm speaking to these days, when I'm saying about when we toured with Motorhead in 1979, they sort of look at me as if to go, when? But no, it's great to see. Oh, we've still got all the old faces, and then of course a lot of young people, and of course a lot of times they actually bring their sons or whatever, So we get them all through. So it's nice to see all the oldies like us, but it's great to see young people as well. Yeah. You
mentioned a couple of tracks off the new album. I have to mention something which leaps off the grooves to anybody is the cover of "Staying Alive." The Bee Gees track. So I'm going to have to ask you the story behind that one.
Well, you can tell by the way I use my voice. I'm a woman, no time to talk. Music loud, and now I'm one. I've been kicked around since I was born. Now it's alright, it's okay. You may look the other way. We can try to understand the New York Times effect on man. Whether you're a brother or whether you're a mother, you're staying alive, staying alive. Feel the city breaking and everybody shaking now. Staying alive, staying alive. Staying alive, staying alive.
Well, yeah. Before we carry on, though, do you like it or not?
I do like it. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that when you're taking on a song like that, it's such an iconic track, and the original recorded track is, you can hear half a bar of that, and everybody knows exactly what's coming. So it's a brave move, but it's been done Girlschool style, and that to me is what a cover should be.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, because what's happened is over the years, of course, we've always recorded. Try to do a cover of a song that we all grew up with or loved, So anyway, this time round, I couldn't actually think of any. then suddenly Tommy, our manager, he said, "This, you might think I'm a bit nuts." He goes, "But what about Staying Alive?" And we all just went, "What? Are you nuts?" And anyway, funny enough, Enid and Denise then said, "No, actually, we could really hear it. They could hear the bass and the drums on it." Me and Jackie were sort of still going we were a bit sceptical, and so we went into rehearsal just to knock it about to see what it was going to sound like, and we thought, "Oh, actually, this could work." And then, of course, so we went in the studio and did it, and of course, Chris came out was great. I mean, for example, there's no way we were going to be singing that bits or whatever, So, of course, Chris goes, "No, we'll just do it on the guitar." "Oh, yeah, of course. Why didn't you think of, it's a genius. Of course, you just do it on the guitar, don't you?"
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love it. I mean, I really love it. We're very, very pleased how it turned out anyway, yeah.
This is a difficult question, but I always ask it. But, I mean, it may not be a difficult question, but what would you say is your proudest moment on record over the years? If you had to put a song into a time capsule which said everything about Girls' School, in what would it be?
Possibly Emergency.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Because it was how we set out to sort of be. Then, of course, there's Race with the Devil as well, which actually, obviously pushed us right up there.
Yeah.
Mainly because Jeff Beck basically was on Round Table, I think it was, and they were playing. Do you remember the days when they used to review all the singles?
Yeah.
And anyway, he was on, and they put Race of the Devil on, and Jeff Beck was down there saying, "There's no way that's girls playing." So of course we all jumped on that, and all the press jumped on it, and then of course we invited him down to a gig, and he came, and that gave us he gave us loads of publicity out of that. And so but I mean, I suppose that was Emergency for us because that was the beginning of it all.
Yeah. You toured the US recently. We talked about your visa hassles, which I know all about from another band we deal with. But all that aside, what was the tour like? I mean, how long was it since you'd played over there?
Well, yeah, it was 8 years or something, which I couldn't believe. I mean, it's frightening how time flies. Yeah, it was amazing. We were there for a month. We started off on the West Coast and made our way across right to the East Coast, to Brooklyn, for the last gig. We had some great audiences and lots of support there. So, yeah, it was amazing.
Brilliant. Well, that's pretty much it from me. One thing, well, obviously we're going to play a track from the new record, and I'm always the gentleman about these things. It's your album, so it's your choice. Which track should we be playing from Guity As Sin?
Oh, blimey. Well, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I like Revolution. I like Take It Like a Band. I like Awkward Position, which is a bit embarrassing, but there you go. I like, Guilt. I said, I don't know. It's hard.
I will choose one on your behalf.
Cheers, Ollie. Thanks very much.
Thanks to the lovely Kim for taking the time. It's always nice to catch up. Here is my pick from the new Girls' School album, Guity As Sin. It's side 1, track 1, the rather marvellous Come the Revolution.
Breaking point in the
Well, that's all from me, Ollie Barnes. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll play out with another track from one of our recently dearly departed, probably my favourite album of his, for which I celebrated his passing by purchasing an original vinyl copy, from which I have this, the kind of title track. So it's so long from me, and farewell to David Bowie.
Ziggy played guitar, jamming good with Weird and Gilly and the Spiders from Mars. He played it left hand, but made it too far. Became the special man, then we were Ziggy's band. Ziggy really sang, screwed up eyes and screwed down hairdo, like some cat from Japan. He could lick 'em by smiling, he could leave 'em to hang. Became on so loaded man, well hung in snow white tan. So where were the spiders while the fly tried to break our bones? Well, just the beer like to guide us. So we bitched about his fans and should we crush his sweet hands. Oh. Ziggy played for time, jiving us that we were voodoo. The kids were just crass, he was the Nas with God-given ass. He took it all too far, but boy could he play guitar. Making love with his ego, Ziggy sucked up into his mind, like a leper messiah. When the kids had killed a man, I had to break up the Oh yeah. Ziggy played guitar.